will have a recession.
Is the risk of recession high? Yes, it is.
GDP growth in the UK has slowed and the economy is now forecast to enter recession later this year.
So it looks like we're heading for a recession, but what is this going to mean for e-commerce businesses? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. But before I get onto that, I just wanted to do a quick recap of why we're actually heading for a recession, because it can be useful to understand. And it all started in 2020, you know, when the pandemic hit and everything started to shut down. Well, what happened then was basically economies started to tank, stock markets started to crash because basically the world wasn't working. Now, to try and stop that and encourage stimulus, governments and central banks started pumping money into the economy. People like Papa Powell turned on his magic money printer. But there was a consequence of this, and what there ended up being was
too much bloody money
knocking about. And when you combine that with the lack of products that was available due to the supply chain shortages we was having through 2020, 2021 and even into 2022, and then you throw things like the war in Ukraine on top of that, it's led to inflation, which is the cost of goods and services that we use every single day going up. And I'm sure we're all starting to feel the effects of this because some things are going pretty mad at the moment when it comes to going up in price. Now, to try and curb this inflation, central banks have started to raise interest rates because what they want to do is they want to start to slow down the flow of money in the economy. They basically want people to go from spending to saving. But once again, there's a consequence to this, because when people stop spending as much money as they were before and they start saving, it slows down business output, because if people aren't spending as much money, businesses aren't producing as much. And when business production starts to fall, it can have a knock-on impact because they're not investing as much in their company because basically they want to try and survive this period. And another effect of this can be it can hit people's pockets, because if the business isn't producing as much, they probably don't need as much manpower. So they may start cutting hours or cutting staff completely. And this can have a real knock-on effect in the economy, because when business production slows, it starts to affect GDP, which is gross domestic product, or basically the economic output of a country. And when GDP falls for 2 consecutive quarters, it's generally accepted that that country is in recession, even though the White House are trying to change the definition of what a recession is. Interesting, that one. So that is why we are in the situation we're in. Basically, business output is falling, people aren't spending as much, and it's affecting the GDP of countries all around the world. And there's numerous countries that are seemingly heading towards recession. So that's where we're at. But what impact is this going to have on your business? So the first one of these is you're probably going to see a fall in sales, which is understandable. If people have got less money and things are more expensive, they're not going to be buying as much stuff. But it does depend on the niche you're in and the products you're selling as to how big this impact is going to be. And probably it's going to be non-essential and luxury items that are going to face the biggest hit when it comes to sales. The reason is these are products that people don't really need. They're often products that people want. Now, more everyday kind of items are probably not going to notice that much impact because people still need to buy these in order to use them every single day. And there may even be some products out there that actually see an increase in sales. This can happen through a recession. For example, during the 2008 recession, ice cream saw an increase of sales between 20 and 25%. The reason is it's a small little treat that people can have that can make themselves feel better about the situation that's going on in the world. So for some businesses, this can actually be a bit of a boom period. And the second thing that's likely to happen is the cost of customer acquisitions is likely to go up. The reason is there's the same amount of companies going after a smaller pool of buyers. So if you're running ads for your e-commerce store, expect the cost of your ads to go up. Things like Google ads or Facebook ads. So your marketing budget is probably not going to go as far as it once did. And number 3 is you're probably going to find your profit margins are starting to get squeezed because you're facing increased costs due to customer acquisitions. Even business costs can start going up in a recession, but it becomes more difficult to actually pass these costs onto the customer because customers are very price conscious during a recession. And if you put your price up too much, they're just going to go to somebody else who's doing it cheaper. So you're likely to see your profit margins getting squished. And this is where having a good pricing strategy for your business can come in really handy, because if you've established a big enough profit margin in the good times, it means you can face a bit of a squeeze in the bad times and not feel too much of an impact on that. But it does depend on the product and niche as to how much of a squeeze you're going to feel. And number 4 is you may find yourself going up against less competition during or at the end of a recession than when the recession started. The reason is there's always casualties in recessions, and everything from solopreneurs up to multi-million or even billion-dollar businesses will end up going bust, usually due to bad financial management. So those are some of the things that are likely to happen during a recession. But how can you start to prepare your business so you can try and weather the storm that is a recession? Now, obviously, this isn't financial advice. I'm just a guy on YouTube. But there are a couple of things you could consider doing. The first one is to understand that cash flow is king. It is in business anyway, but even more so during a recession. So if you've got any stock knocking about that you're struggling to sell or hasn't sold very well at all or not sold, do everything in your power to try and get that sold. Even if you have to sell it basically so you break even on every single sale. You want to try and get that money back into your business if possible, because it could be beneficial at a later date. And number 2 is to review your business's expenses and expenditure, because when you're going through a recession, you want your business to be as lean as possible, especially when your profit margins are getting squeezed. So list out all of your business's outgoings every single month and go through it and answer this question honestly. Do I need this in order to run my business effectively? If it's a no, then get rid of it. Strip it down so you only need the essential things in order to be able to run your business properly. And number 3 is to build up an emergency fund. And ideally you want to do this for your business and also your personal finances as well. So build up a nest egg of 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. So should things really hit the fan, and even if you don't have a sale, you've got this cushion you can fall back on so you can try and ride out the storm that is this recession. And number 4 is always be on the lookout for opportunities. And if needs be, prepare to pivot your business. Because there are going to be opportunities in the recession, there always is. In fact, a lot of millionaires are actually made during recessions. And I'd like to fall into that category. But you never know what opportunities are going to become available. You may see an opportunity with a new product, or there may be marketing opportunities that are out there that you may not have been able to access before. Because when it comes to things like marketing, one of the first things that businesses cut is their marketing budget. So marketing agencies, freelancers, individuals out there may be offering their services at a more attractive price, and you may be able to capitalize on these if your business is in a solid financial situation. But when it comes to making business decisions during a recession, you want to stay calm, because it can be very easy when everything is starting to hit the fan to panic and make rash and irrational decisions, and this can really have a negative impact on your business. I know this from first-hand experience. So you want to remain calm, and whenever you make a decision, do your due diligence. So whether you decide to go for something or not, it's based on an educated decision that you've made. And if you decide to go for something, it's based on a calculated risk that you've figured out. It's not just a blind gamble that you're taking. And by doing this, you should be able to come out of the recession somewhat unscathed. In fact, you may be able to even thrive through a recession if you can take advantage of the right opportunities at the right time. So if this video has been helpful in any way, a like would be absolutely awesome, because it helps me out with the almighty YouTube algorithm. So thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.